welcome back to the Kirk Miller Podcast. I'm just going to get straight into this because this is a subject that I know I have had immense struggles with over the years and still have struggles now, certainly as a father, businessman, blah, blah, blah. Basically, we have the fantastic Charlotte Stebbing-Mills on the podcast today, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but there's one subject in particular that you have built your business around and help not just companies, but entrepreneurs, I'm guessing particularly in the UAE with, and that is the subject of stress.
Dun, dun, dun.
Stress. So I encourage you to listen to this episode right to the very end. If you don't like feeling stressed, you currently feel stressed, and just at any point in your week or your month, you'd like to get maybe a different perspective, some different insights into this, because I mean, Charlotte, we've known each other now a few months. We've got sort of a lot of mutual friends, and yeah, we hit it off straight away. So firstly, thank you so much for giving up your time today.
Thanks for having me. And I think really what you just described is, if you're human, stick around, because every human being experiences stress on some level.
Yeah, 100%. And even in relation to, the people we coach, like, and I know I'm very black and white with this, they're coming to us, they want to be lean, fit, healthy, more energized, all this stuff. And if it was as simple as eat well, track your macros, get your steps in, get your sessions in, why aren't half the world healthier? And for me, it's 99% of the time it's down to emotions, but in particular stress. So just to kick us off, Charlotte, for those who don't know you, let's lead from the front. What is your business is now, and what is what's the goal with the businesses? Why do people come and work with you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think you've hit the nail on the head. Why do people come with us? Because typically stress is the one thing that stops people from achieving whatever, right? Whether that be physical health, whether that be business performance, whether that be just having a peaceful life, peaceful family, this kind of stuff, right? So my business is solely on a mission to help people be healthy and well so that they can be a force for good. Because one of the patterns we've seen over the years is when we get locked into stress, we get very narrow focused, which is very natural, and we're hardwired to do that, but then everything becomes almost about us. And what I've seen over the years is this unlock that happens is that when we let go of the unhealthy stress, the chronic stress, the stress that causes the problems, we actually then open up to just be happier ourselves, but then have a ripple effect with the people that we're surrounded by. So we purposely specialise with impact-driven high performers. So there's people who are wanting to do something more meaningful, whether that be day to day in their parenthood, whether that be in their business, whether that be with a charity, whether that be whatever dreams it is they've got, so long as it's the idea of they want to have this unlock to be able to essentially create contagious energy that ripples out. That's kind of who we work with. And typically they are driven by pain, but very much by purpose as well, and that's an interesting line. And I got into this work over 20 years ago, so I've been kind of at this for a while from kind of different angles. And I know our kind of like starting point in the industry kind of was that health and fitness space, and I kind of like then specialised in working with people with cardiac issues and strokes, so kind of got to see stress from that perspective and how it can be really catastrophic, and then through into commercial fitness and well-being, into organisational well-being, and very much on that journey experienced my own quite significant burnout as well.
Yeah, amazing. You mentioned you particularly focused on this area. I'm sure it's evolved and you've modified and all this stuff as the world's changed and saw lots of different things so you can become even better. But 20 years ago, why did you get into this? And could you give people a little bit of a backstory? Because I think there always needs to be context, and even from a personal point of view, I always want to know what's the why behind this.
Yeah. The dots always connect looking back, right? So I wouldn't have described it this way probably at the time. I grew up in a loving but quite a turbulent household, and I got to see what healthy stress did, like the stress that drives us and makes good decisions to help us feel good. And I also got to see what unhealthy stress looked like when we perhaps don't deal with turbulence in such a way that might be more resourceful for the people that we're around. So there was a lot of domestic violence in my household. There was a lot of there was then turbulence throughout the divorce. There was different kinds of encounters as I was growing up, and I remember looking at my role models at the time and thinking, how do I navigate this? What I wanted to do was escape. And I remember I was like 13 years old, and I went to, you'll know this from being from the UK, I just wanted to get out of the house. I went over to the local park.
Where were you from?
So this was when I was living in Essex.
Okay.
So I went over to the local park, and there was one of these cancer research 5K runs happening, and there was all these people that were pretty emotional, but they were kind of having a good time. They were being like really, really healthy, and they were like running this 5K, and I'm like, they're crying. They've got like names of people that they've lost on their backs. And I'm 13 years old. I didn't know what was going on. But I remember leaving my house feeling quite sad, quite stressed, quite upset. And I was like, who are these people? What is happening? And that was the first time I got to see people channeling emotion into something meaningful, whether it be raising money or coming together to support a cause that they believed in. So there was kind of that happening at home. Then the exposure to how other people dealt with stress, exposure then to these people that were doing something meaningful. And then at the same time, I really enjoyed health and fitness. So I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like scratching that itch for me. And I went then and did my study. And I kind of moved into the specialism of cardiac rehab and prevention, because the fitness industry typically goes one of two ways. It goes into aesthetics, which is fine, but it also goes into the health side of things. And I was very much just drawn to that with kind of clients that came in, and that piqued my interest. And
do you think that piqued your interest because of what you'd seen growing up?
100%.
Because usually it's like the thing you are obsessed, or the problem you're obsessed to solve is usually something so close to your heart, because you've seen someone you love be hurt by that thing, or it's hurt you yourself, or both.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what happened. And as I kind of continued on my kind of career trajectory, I got to the point where all caught up with me. All of the kind of emotions and all of the things that I'd kind of been exposed to, and all of this stress that I'd been under as a kid was basically burning me out in my mid-20s. And I'm like, how did I get here? I'm supposed to be the healthy one. I'm supposed to be the one that understands all of this. What's happening here?
So you were still fit, healthy, in shape, but
I was training, I was eating well, mostly, but then I started to move into some emotional eating to kind of like take the edge off of some of the stresses, if you like. But I was still training hard, and you wouldn't know that was the case behind the scenes.
I get it.
I was working in a senior position here in the Middle East, flying to 5 different countries in the GCC, in the course of a week or two. The pressure was on from a work perspective, from an internal perspective, and I had a big crash from a mental health point of view.
What age was that?
26, 27, honestly.
26, and you were in UAE at the time?
I was in the UAE at the time,
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened exactly?
So I was, again, sunshine and rainbows on the outside, on the inside, behind closed doors. I remember one day in particular coming back home to my place in Abu Dhabi and closing the door behind me and just crying. I was in an absolute mess, and I got to the point where I was down and out. I wanted to check out. I was this close to just ending it all. And then there was, I don't know what it was, I can't describe what it is, but there was this feeling of I need help. And I reached out and got help at the time, but it was at that point I was like, how did I get here? Like, what happened? How did I not really recognize consciously, or at least own it during this big build-up phase? And that for me was then this period of recovery for myself, but also then a deeper field of study to go into to actually then understand, okay, well, how does this happen? When you're eating well, you're doing all the right things, you're getting enough steps, you're doing all the tick box things, and it just didn't work. And it was because there was a lot more going on under the surface, kind of at the root, that was just not addressed. And I'm like, well, if I don't know this and I'm in this space, back when probably I'm going to assume maybe we studied around the same sort of time, don't know how old you are now, but there was nothing there was nothing in the education. Even when specialising in cardiac rehab, there was nothing around emotional health. There was nothing about mental health, nothing about relational health. And it was like, nervous system health. Give me a PT qualification that actually shows you the depths of the nervous system. Now, yes, but 20 years ago, no.
No. Knowing what we know now, I mean, it's absolute madness, really. When you look at what ultimately creates people's physical health is down to people's behaviour, but if you've got these things that are brushed under the carpet that are subconsciously, unconsciously going through your mind to then influence your behaviour, it's absolute madness. You're relying then solely on force to make someone eat well, train well, and it's just people are going to break. So knowing what you know now, if that happened at 26, knowing what you know now, and I'm sure you've analysed as well, what were the patterns, maybe the 2 or 3 years, if not longer, leading up to 26, what were the signs, and what did you feel you ignored or suppressed in some way?
I think, first of all, there's different extremes of stress, right? So we've got kind of that acute stress that happens when you get stuck in traffic and you get a bit wound up, and then it passes quick, right? And then there's times when it becomes chronic, and it's like you flip your lid when somebody, cuts you up in traffic. That's typically a sign that, something's bubbling under the surface, just waiting to get out. Okay. And that was kind of what was happening with me. But it wasn't because I was feeling it under the surface necessarily, because I was actually experiencing what's called now dissociation, where I was like not very well connected to my emotions. And being a female, that surprises sometimes people as well. But I didn't learn how to deal with emotions growing up. I didn't learn how to emotionally regulate. Nobody said the word stress to me, really. I didn't understand what was happening inside my body at the time, whether that be in significant moments of stress or whether that be in small moments of stress. So my patterns personally were a lot of...
because this might relate to people.
It was a lot of overthinking, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of doing things because I think I should, a lot of people pleasing. Then we've already mentioned just eating, just on days that were particularly stressful, I wouldn't be bothered about going and eating a whole thing of don't know, Tim Tams.
I've never heard of Tim Tams.
They're like penguins. They're like penguins.
Okay.
but that was not like me. It was a change in my behaviour. And I think that's the most important thing for people listening to something like this, is what's different for you. What is suddenly happening that wasn't happening before, or what feels amplified? Because there is no one size fits all. That was how it kind of showed up for me. But it's not necessarily how it shows up for other people. So it's recognising what are your own patterns. Are you even aware of your own patterns? And if you're noticing a significant change, that's usually there's something going on under the surface. And you're
doing things that deep down you don't want to do, or say you don't want to do, but you keep doing them anyway and you can't understand why.
Exactly. And then shame often plays a part in that. It's like, well, for me, it was like, I'm supposed to be this, healthy person, I'm helping other people. And I was getting amazing results with people that I work with the company I was working for at the time. I loved what I was actually doing. But there was this shame behind the scenes of, well, hang on, this doesn't match up. There's this internal conflict. Like, what is it? And because I didn't have the tools to deal with it, I just didn't. So that was another thing, is the avoidance. And that's what a lot of people do, that will avoid how we're feeling, or we might even try and escape that as well.
Why do you think that is?
Sometimes it's we don't know how, so then we've just learned that as a coping mechanism. But often it's because it's painful, right? There's suffering typically underneath our behaviours, right? And when they're not the sort of behaviours that we want, that's when usually there's suffering. When we can't get ourselves to do something that we know we should do, or even that we want to do, there is something that is not quite clicking under the surface.
You mentioned something there which resonates with me, and I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of people, because I think it's a huge problem. I've had it, and every now and then it creeps in now. People pleasing. I think so many people do people please. I've done it myself, so zero judgment on anyone listening. Where do you think that came from for you? Because I know for me it was when I was stripped apart by a dear friend in the personal development space. It was feeling like I needed to make my dad proud every single time I saw him, because I didn't see him that much because he was always working. So, I mean, there's even I'm going off topic here, but I even filmed a video where I went back to my old council estate where I was first brought up, first time in 35 years, and I didn't know it at the time, but there's a clip where I'm literally looking at the window where my dad would look out when I'd be kicking the wall against the back wall, and I literally, in this clip, this is where my dad used to watch me, and I used to want to make him so proud. Even that is like inadvertently, of course, I want to go above and beyond for clients and friends, and even people listening to this, you're trying to serve, right? But there is a line that you can draw where you overdo that, it affects your self-worth, because you're putting people's needs before your own consistently. And I think so many entrepreneurs that I coach certainly will go above and beyond for clients, team, even their partner and kids, which I know you got to do, but yourself at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
But coming back to you,
Yeah.
sorry, where do you think that came from that, again, might resonate with potentially people listening?
It's such an important question because we learn how to relate to the world around us, all those examples you've just given, from how we attach to our caregivers, right?
Yep.
So for me, same. Like for you, it was dad. For me, it was both mum and dad, but it was learning, okay, what's going to please mum when she's feeling sad after dad's doing whatever dad's doing, or how can I make sure dad's okay to make sure that he stays okay so that nothing bad happens, right? So there's a lot of people pleasing from that perspective, not wanting to rock the boat at home, always being a peacemaker. Very much comes from that, and that was then what domino effect into my work. The reason I was doing so well at work was because I was like that. So it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it's knowing where that line is, which is what you've just alluded to there. Is that line sometimes completely invisible until you draw the line yourself?
Because surely if you are people pleasing that much, you are inadvertently not being authentic in certain situations, which means you're suppressing emotions that you really want to express.
Yeah.
And that just builds up and builds up and builds up.
Yeah.
Can you maybe add some context on that? Because I don't think I know, we've had Richard Moat speak about this, one of the emotional wellbeing guys, about, and I really think this is important for everyone to listen, like how damaging suppressing your emotions is. It is.
It's so there's a core fundamental need for us always to feel safe, right? So if we're not feeling safe, whether that be to say no to somebody, or whether it's to say no to ourselves, like our nervous system gets used to the feeling of not being safe, right? So we're trying to then chase whatever we can to help us feel that sense of safety, which calms our nervous system, which allows us to open our capacity to feel our emotions without it being scary and without us feeling unsafe. So when we get open what's called our window of tolerance, this kind of like our capacity, if you like, inside of our system, we can then actually start to welcome the emotions to come in. But if we don't, the window closes, our tolerance becomes less, right? There's more strain on the system, right? Now there's more cortisol and adrenaline running around the body. So now we've got this cocktail inside of us, as well as the perception of what we think's happening in our day-to-day life, whether it be people pleasing or something else. And all of that comes together like a perfect storm. And we, at some point, we flip our lid, or like we cry ourselves to sleep at night, or we punch a wall. Like it comes in so many different ways, but it's the level of self-awareness that's required to be able to go there. And I think often when we are in spaces where we are high performing, we are people that want to do more, be more, impact more, it becomes this drug and this addiction. And this is one of the biggest patterns I've noticed over time is an addiction to stress. And people will be thinking, well, I'm not addicted to stress. I don't love stress. But some entrepreneurs you talk to, they love it. They love the hype. They love the next thing. They love the next conversation. I'm not sure if it was before or after we put the mics on today, we said as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to put yourself back to back.
Yep.
Right? Not give yourself any breathing space. Yep. Right, that's happening because we're hooked. We want the next thing. It's like, let's just pause and be where we are, check in, see how we're feeling, then go on to the next thing. Now we've opened a little bit of capacity in that window of tolerance within us that allows us to now create space for maybe what's actually going on.
It's interesting you said that because, again, I've seen a lot of my clients' calendars, and it is back to back to back to back to back to back. And I think there's this universal rule, okay, that every meeting has to be an hour or bang on 30. Okay, why? Why can't you do it in 50 minutes?
Exactly.
And I think it's a part of, you feel like you're getting more done, or you feel you're being more productive if you're doing that. Yeah,
you are. You're addicted to performance. So you might not describe it being as on. Stress, but being on. And there was a study done that showed the brain scans and the chemical releases of people that were showing the same symptoms as you would with drug addiction, but the addiction was productivity and performance. Right, so this is actually happening inside of our body. It's not just something that we just become accustomed to and we do, but we're being fueled by it now, through both society and the systems.
Especially if you're getting praise and acceptance and pats on the back at work and going, God, look at this guy, you're a machine.
Exactly.
A machine.
And now we're getting that validation that we wanted.
Okay.
That we need to feel safe. So now we feel safe when we're doing it, but actually the very thing that we're doing is creating this sense of unsafety or dysregulation inside of our body, and our nervous system is becoming completely overloaded.
So when your nervous system becomes completely overloaded, and maybe this might tie in with what happened taking you back to 26, like, what are the risks that you, like, what are the risks when you are literally just nervous system shot and you've just pushed the pedal too far?
Yeah, so it's different for everybody, right? Burnout is significantly different for all. So for me, it was definitely mental health. It was my ability to think straight kind of disappeared. And it wasn't to the point of like a mental disorder. I think that's important to understand, because we look at mental health, and as we say mental health, people think problem. When we say physical health, we don't think problem straight away. We think illness, right? So it was this almost like a blip. There was like this brain fog. There was not really having this sense of knowing who I was, and the sense of confusion. So that was kind of a risk for me, in the sense that I couldn't do the thing that made me feel good, which was the working and the working out and all of those things. It wasn't making me feel good anymore. So the risk then become, well, I don't have any options because this doesn't feel good, and I don't know what the other options are, or this doesn't feel good. So there, people will burn out, and your whole body will shut down, right? Your body will be flooded with too much adrenaline and cortisol, and you won't know how to come back from that, and you need more nutritional support, or you might need different kinds of interventions. So it really depends on the person. But the scariest part of it, I say the scariest part of it, I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, is the unknown, right? It's that typical sense that somebody was okay, now they're not okay. What does that actually mean about the person, and how do they gain clarity about how to come back from that? And that's often where we get like a breakthrough, and that's where we start to put ourselves back together again, and we start to hopefully design the life that we know that we need as an individual, regardless of the calendar needs to be back to back and so on, right? And that's where I think the kind of the superpower comes in, and how you actually truly overcome it from a state of lasting change. Some people, they get to a point of chronic stress, and all they really need is to tidy up their lifestyle. They do need to tidy up what they're eating. They do need to move more. They need to get some perspective on what it is they're doing. Some just need to get a hobby outside of work, right?
Really?
Sometimes that's all somebody might need. But most of the time, if it's a significant stress and burnout case, we need to look a bit deeper and understand what are the patterns that are driving all of the things that have brought you here.
Have you got a process or say, assuming that there are a lot of people in that position, that they're maybe on the verge of that, or they don't want that, what would be like first port of call if that was? Yeah, so I think if it wasn't training and nutrition, it was a problem.
The first port of call is first of all zooming out, looking, understanding the big picture. Right, stress is a very, very human experience. We're all supposed to experience it. It's understanding now, okay, something isn't right because you're not getting the results you want. So you got to zoom out and be like, okay, well, what are all the components that could be contributing to this? Because often we think it's one thing and it could be something else. Okay. We think mental health, or we must get a therapist, right? Or we must journal or whatever, right? But actually our mental health could be suffering because of our nutrition, right? So we need to start to understand that it's all entangled. So we need to zoom out, and I would encourage anybody watching or listening to this to imagine you've got a pyramid, you've got a triangle in front of you, you've got our life at the kind of the tip of that pyramid, you've got our health in the middle, and then we've got what we call our root at the bottom. Our life level is our day-to-day stuff, right? It's our family, it's our relationships, our finances, it's all about responsibilities. This is where stress is visible, right? This is where you can see in your calendar there is no space to go and do that workout, right? You can see that there is no space to do something. You can see your reactions to things day to day. Sometimes we just need to learn how to communicate better, and some of those stresses will disappear, or we will learn the skills we need on a life level to be able to get where it is that we're going. But then on a health level, what we'll typically then look at, if just skill acquisition isn't helping at that life level, is we'll look at, okay, what could be happening with you when it comes to the quality of your thinking, when it comes to your emotions, when it comes to how you move and how much energy you have, or how aligned you are at taking action towards what you want. How are those things stacking up? Because if something's not happening at the life level, we'll check those areas. We'll check things like the sleep as well. So we'll be looking at all of these different factors to be like, okay, if we just tweak some of these levers, does the thing at the life level shift? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yep. If those things don't work, we then dig into that life level, which is where we're then looking at what is your perception around your situation? What are the beliefs that you hold about yourself or about whatever is happening in your life? What are your patterns? Are you a people pleaser? Are you somebody who knows how to regulate yourself, and you really understand that your unresolved past experience or unresolved emotions could be popping up, or some old patterns that maybe you've learned from 30 years ago and now developing in your own behaviour. So we start to look at the conditioning. So first we'll kind of zoom out and look at that big picture, and usually there's some aha moments of I didn't realise that because I was learned to be a people pleaser when I'm 7 years old is now why I will not allow myself to take a break because I need to go and please my partner, my boss, my friend, whatever. Right? So, and it's like, okay, well, so therefore, let's stop trying to just say no, right? Let's actually understand, where did that come from? Why is this showing up? We look at different things like masculine and feminine energy. We look at our masculine and feminine energy. So everybody's got energy, right? I think we can all agree on that. We're either quite fluid in our energy, and we feel quite full of vitality, and we're in touch with our emotions, and we're feeling very aligned, and perhaps we can just kind of like roll with the day. Other days, we might have days where perhaps we are a little bit more still feeling energized, but we're channeling that now. Now it's focused. Now it's very much like, okay, I've got this on, I've got this on, this on. This is how I'm going to show up. This is how it's going to go. Douche, 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 right? And like that's more of a masculine energy. So the first is more feminine. Second is more the masculine, and it's nothing to do with gender. Every single gender has both within us, but that can become sometimes a stress point because we are not necessarily finding our sense of balance as to what that means. So give me an example, let's say in a relationship from a stress point of view. Let's say you've got a man and a woman in a relationship and they are suddenly butting heads. Before they was absolutely fine, like there was this almost like a nice fluidity between the two of them. There was almost this dance happening. They kind of know those kind of sweet spots, and the spots that maybe are not so sweet, but you know it all and you're accepting of it. But let's say now, woman goes to work, has a stressful day, and instead of dealing with those emotions, or man, to be fair, doesn't deal with those emotions. More of a feminine energy required to be an observer and to witness and to feel. If we don't do that and we then rush from a stressful day at work into picking up the kids and then straight home to cook dinner or whatever it is, but whether you be male or female, partner's going to get it. Now we're clashing, right? So it's understanding, okay, well, which energy is showing up when we're stressed that could be impacting your relationship. So the top 3 stresses that most people have, right, is relationship, finances, or career. All right, followed closely by health. So it's like if we can understand like how is our own energy, how are our own patterns, our own behaviours, our own tendencies affecting this thing outside of me, well, now we can get to the root cause of what's actually going on. We can stop pretending that we just need a night off, right? Or
are there any example practices or question frameworks that you'd recommend? Because I'm almost guaranteed that every single person listening to this can relate to that in some way, and if not, they're probably full of shit and suppressing their emotions as they listen to this.
I think the thing where I think everybody should start is to learn to listen, right, to themselves. And you think of this as an acronym, something we call the LISTEN method, which is basically where you lean into the idea that you have the answer, right? There is something within you that could be contributing to this situation, and we will figure it out. So lean into that idea. Identify what's going on. What are the sensations, right? What are the sensations of what you're feeling in this moment? Is it tension? Are you just feeling a bit brain foggy? Are you feeling depleted? Like what is what are you identifying within yourself? The S is then sitting with it without judgment. Then we want to actually then really tune into it and understand, okay, what's it actually telling me? What is this tension telling me now? Am I carrying too much? This is why I've got tension in my shoulders. I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. Right? Then we need to engage with that idea and actually start to think about addressing it and be like, okay, what do I need right now? And then the N is actually our network, meaning who might we need to lean on or support or ask for help from.
Okay.
Right? So learning to listen is the first step, because from there you're going to get most of your answers.
Yeah, whereas if you are literally minute to minute in your day, how do you even have space to process how you feel, what your energy is, even your body language? You can't.
Yep, 100%.
You can't.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges that high achievers have today is that we are living in an overstimulated world. We overstimulate ourselves because we're hooked on it. We don't create space for recovery, true recovery, right? You might Netflix and chill, but that is more just like a rest than recovery, right? Recovery meaning we want to recover the energy that's within us. We want to reconnect to ourselves to be able to create whatever this life force is to do what it is you want to do with it. And we are lacking in recovery at this point, right? Our nervous system is overloaded, but recovery is the one thing that gets neglected.
Yeah, I can absolutely resonate with that. Literally, last year at my end of year event, I literally did this talk. It was the Dad Bod 2025. Bit of a joke, so I weren't out of shape, of course, but you hit the nail on the head with me. It was like the recovery. Look, I had maybe a valid excuse that I was trying to be a good dad and help Gabby with the night feeds and stuff, but I was literally saying yes to too many things on top of that and thought I was superhuman, and I felt absolutely exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. On that subject, you mentioned the word emotional health. I've got my meaning of that what emotional health is. But for someone who isn't maybe as passionate about the granular details of that, from your words, your experience, what does emotional health mean? And how important is that? Because I know, having coached so many entrepreneurs, even some of the people we're currently working within our program, look, you've seen the model of Built to Last and the pillars, and it's not just the physical, it's not just the training. And even the last week, some clients, especially if they're newer to the program, they still can't grasp the impact of your emotional health on their long-term aspiration, maybe of looking a certain way and weighing a certain weight. Yeah. What is emotional health to you, and from your experience, to anyone listening?
I think it's freedom and regulation. So it's the ability to be able to feel your feelings in a way that's useful, right? So it's not to avoid unhealthier emotions. And when I say unhealthier, I mean more low vibrational emotions that perhaps we don't want to be feeling, and stop chasing the ones that we want, the good ones, right? Like the joy and the peace and the elation of hitting the goal at the end of it, right? Because most of the time when we're training, let's say we're training for something specific, it's because there's a payoff at the end. There's something you want to feel at the end of that. Yeah, there might be a medal you want, but it's the feeling that you want. It's the feeling that you're chasing. And that feeling, you're even being pulled towards that feeling by feelings that are often more lighter. Let's say you're motivated, you're excited. Maybe it's joyful for you. You enjoy what you're actually doing in your workouts, or you're running away from something to get there, right? Which is usually fear, some kind of pain, some kind of suffering. Right? Guilt of not being a good parent, therefore I must be healthy because I want to live long enough to play with my kids, right? Is that fear that we're not going to play with the kids? Guilt of maybe I'm not going to be a good dad if I don't? Like all of these kinds of ideas start to pop up in people's minds. But it's hard to look at those things, right? Which is then why it's hard to make those connections. But if somebody really wants to connect the dot, it's understand what's the why. The first question you ask me is why. Why do you do this? Why do you care about it? Why are you passionate about it? Like, why does somebody want to achieve that thing? As soon as you unlock that, right, that's the bit that's going to get you there.
Yeah, I understand. You've obviously worked with a lot of people, and I'm sure, like you just said, you've noticed a lot of patterns and trends. From all the business leaders, entrepreneurs, etc., you've worked with, all the companies you've been in, what do the healthiest, I mean emotional health just as much, and less stressed high performers do that maybe people who might have the same status but are consistently stressed, not physically and or emotionally healthy? What's the difference?
Yeah, such a great question. They learn to, and I'm going to say learn to because I don't believe this has come naturally to anybody I've ever worked with as a client. Naturally, otherwise they probably wouldn't have come to us in the first place. But they pause. They have learnt to pause. And that might be pause to check in with how they're feeling, but it's pausing long enough to know what they need next. They've learned how to meet their own needs and understand what those needs are. So it's not a specific routine. It's not they just journal or they do breath work or jump into ice baths. It's they pause long enough to understand what they need, and then they design their life around it. So they will understand that going to play golf at the weekend is important to them because it brings them connection with their friends. Sometimes it's solitude if they go and do a round on their own. It's connection to nature. It's a time when they can switch their phone off and not feel guilty about it because it's a bit of exercise, it's ticking a few boxes for them. So therefore they protect that time, right? Okay. Whereas others will potentially still stay in that the old patterns of emotion or past experiences or past behaviour patterns where they choose not to do that. So there's a lot of not pushing things away and actually tuning in and checking in what they actually need. That's the core of it. It might not be golf, you know, it might be going out with a friend, it might be sitting quietly, it might be just listening to music, it could be anything.
Just anything that isn't just, look, let's not sugarcoat it, work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. There's been studies done that show that you, when you've got a hobby outside of work or you've got something outside of work, you're going to be a lot more at ease within your own well-being.
Especially when you stack that with connection with good people. Look, we both know the importance of community and peer group and who you spend time with and stuff. And it's like, if you're in a stressful environment for 5-6 days a week, if you want to guarantee that you're going to be stressed, how about keep spending time with that peer group? And I think it's, just speaking from experience, I've worked with so many people in the corporate world, and I think that's the worst for stress, because a lot of people, I love your take on this as well, because, look, this might rub people up the wrong way. I get it when I've got a mouth to feed now, I've got a little girl, and you've got pressure, and but I genuinely think there's a lot of people in that corporate world that might have got on that ladder at a younger stage of their life, and they're built up, they've got status, they've got the money. There's a couple of fears from that of going, shit, if I pivoted, knowing that this isn't right for me, it doesn't feel good in my heart and I'm stressed, then, well, what are people going to think? How am I going to provide? But I can't help but think if you're not brave enough to face those decisions at some point, it's going to hurt the people you love anyway, or yourself, and lead to things like burnout. Yeah,
I mean, it's a tricky one because there is a reality to consider, right? We do live in this world, and there are certain pressures, and you've got to make your money, and you've got to do all these other things. But at the end of the day, you still get your choice. You still get freedom of choice. And that doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow if it's what you think is your job that's hurting you or stressing you, right? And I say that intentionally, what you think it is, because often we think it's the corporate thing. We think it's that work dynamic. And actually something going on at that root level, nothing to do with what's happening at the life level, and it's something that you're internalizing that is coming out in this way. Once you've looked internally at those things and you still find your environment is not serving you, that's when you need a sense of purpose, and maybe you need a skill acquisition, maybe you need a different community. That's when you can start to gain the courage we need, and we find courage when we feel safe within ourselves, when we do that deeper work, and then we are able to make decisions more confidently. It doesn't mean you'll have all the answers, but it just means that you know when it's time to go.
Or, like you've just said, with it, I think it's brilliant the way you've put it, you do that work that you probably never faced, and you change the way you look at things in that workspace, and maybe have more boundaries. Have the bollocks to say no to your boss who's asking you to work 4 hours later at the expense of time with your family. Am I on the right path with that?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because then you know you've done everything within your own power to create a sense of change, if it was even needed, in the space that you're in. And often, I've seen this working with different execs in different industries, that as soon as they do that work, everything else shifts. One of the reasons we got into working with organizations and workplace well-being was because we'd done a lot of work with CEOs who suddenly understood the importance of it because they'd been through it, and they were like, something's got to change now at the top for us to be able to make sure that our employees are healthy and well. Can you come and do this within teams? Right, so it's one of those things, like we're not all going to be that lucky to have that boss that goes and does that work, but you do have the capacity and the level of choice and agency to claim and go and do that work for yourself, and then see where that leaves you. Because sometimes it's the person that's maybe in a middle management position that then creates big change within an organization because they did that work, and then they were able to communicate efficiently up and down, and then create better change for the people around them. So this is one of the lenses I look through now with the work I do, is like we have ourself, we have the systems we're in, and then we have the wider society. And I think there's this ripple effect that runs through all of it. As soon as we start to work on all of the things we've discussed, essentially our ability to manage our own nervous system and our own stress, we have that unlock that then helps us to influence the systems that we're a part of. Let me ask you this. Your partner and little Bubba, are they much happier when you're happy?
1,000,000%.
Right.
1,000,000%.
So,
and maybe I can speak, please interrogate me for the sake of the listeners here as well. My energy is very strong and powerful. If I'm having a bad day, my energy and aura, people feel it. And equally, I can charge a room in seconds as well. So, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that I coach, Vibe Attracts Tribe, right?
Exactly.
So they're pretty much cut from a very similar cloth. So.
There we go. So it's without its Spider-Man quote, it's like it comes with a lot of responsibility, right? We have to know that about ourselves and be like, okay, well, if I know that this is how I feel when I'm in this state, how am I going to show up with that, right? Maybe you need to take some micro moments on those bad days and you just take a few minutes in the car before you walk in the front door to just reset yourself, right? And then you go in intentionally. Doesn't mean you're ignoring the feelings or whatever's going on for you. It just means that we're going to channel that energy in different ways. And when we can do that and we own that with a sense of responsibility, well, now we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the people we care about. So now it becomes actually selfish if you don't do it. And that then becomes this power move that you get to then have and own to then get all the results it is that you actually want, which is happy family, happy career, meaningful life.
It just helps you manage those transitions from work to family to gym or whatever it is. Because I think that's so important. And I'd be gobsmacked if there's not a business owner or entrepreneur, expat, whatever, that's still listening to this, who hasn't gone through this, where you finish work, you like you say, you've worked to that last minute to get that last email done, the call done, that last task, and then you dive straight into your family situation where you've got leader, alpha, blah blah blah. Like what is a really simple, maybe 2-minute exit? Because I know there's different breath work you could do.
Really simple. Okay. Take a breath. Breathe out longer than you breathe in. Really simple. Just take a breath. That's it. If you can do that repeatedly for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, amazing. Your nervous system will literally just flick straight on to that kind of rest, recover mode, or a resourceful mode at least, for you to then show up in the way that you want to. If you can just train, it's called your vagal nerve, if you can just train that just through that simple breath, 5 minutes a day, tops. Do it before you work out, you'll get a better workout. Do it after you work out, you'll recover even better. Do it before you eat, you'll digest your food better. Like, pick the time, it's up to you. But do that, and that basically turns this constant, like, impulse off. And now you can do everything better. So just keep it simple. That's it. I mean, I could give you 1,000,001 different things.
No, it's interesting you should say that, because I actually, Charlotte, I actually do that before a workout.
Perfect.
As mad as it sounds. I literally, and I've said this to clients, I literally close my eyes for a minute, 2 minutes, and because half the time I might have gone to the gym from work, or especially now with a baby, you know, you've got things on your head, and I'll just close my eyes and just breathe slowly for 2 minutes. That for me is as effective as the mobility I do afterwards, because I've shifted my state, and it allows me to, what Kirk do I need to bring to that gym session? But I'll be lying if I said I don't always do that when it comes from human, work to family. But no, I think it's not a nice to have. I believe that is a must have, that I encourage any client listening who's listening to this, and any entrepreneur, business, because I do think it is like, if we're working hard for the people we love, to provide the freedom, do the nice things, buy the nice things, above all else, they want a happy, energized partner, or more often than not, that person shows up like that. And I think a lot of people forget that. 100%.
And we have to remember that our environments used to support recovery and those moments to transition. Right?
In what way?
As in, you used to knock off work at 5 o'clock, maybe not in the fitness industry, but you'd knock off at a certain time and you wouldn't have your phone, you wouldn't be accessible, right? Even entrepreneurs back in the day, they worked hard, but there was a time where business stopped. And now it doesn't.
You're right, and I think phone is the biggest, but there's no two ways about it. Like,
so we have to, if the environment's not going to support us with it, we have to then create that environment for ourselves. And as leaders, as entrepreneurs, founders, parents, whatever you're leading in, you have to own that fully, right? And therefore it becomes again a responsibility to do it and to lead it from the front, because nobody else is going to come and do it for you. Nobody's going to come and build your business for you. Nobody's going to come and put the dummy in baby at night. It's nobody else is coming to save you, essentially. That sounds very doom and gloom, but it's on us, but in the most exciting way. I almost love it when stress comes up. I mean, I know it's a bit weird, but I don't love the suffering that comes, but I love what it can teach us. I love the ripple effect that can have.
Amazing. I'm conscious of time now. Charlotte, what is the mission for you moving forward? What is the mission? Like, I can see how passionate this is to you. It's obviously so close to your heart because of what you went through, and there's just so many gold actionable tactics that people can listen to. But what is the mission moving forward? Is it with the wellness theory?
So the wellness theory is the name of our company. Also part of a couple of other social impact ventures as well. And I think that for me, the mission is just to continue to help people be healthy and well so they can be a force for good. And for me and my skill set, that is unlocking that stress, burnout, leverage that I know is there, that it becomes an absolute resource of vitality for us to do good and be good and to feel good. And whatever else is needed on that mission, I bring in and work with other people that can support those people on that journey.
Why is that so important to you?
I think it's important to have a North Star. Otherwise, we can get stuck within ourselves. And I don't mean that from a bad place, because when you do enough work, there's a sense of peace when you're within yourself, which is great. But then when you feel that sense of peace, you can't help but want to almost do something with it, right? It's like you help a certain number of people, and it's like, oh, I want to help more, I want to help more, I want to help more. It's just that same idea, but it's coming from a much more peaceful place now than what it has done in the past for me. So I think that's a big part of it as well, is just staying in that alignment. So I think that's why it's so important to me personally, and also the world needs it.
I can't help but think, if I was to maybe look at a Charlotte 20, well, when you were 26, even though I'm sure you, like you just said, you're in shape, but you've got unbelievable energy, right? That not just physical energy, but emotional energy. I'm sure that's been amplified, even though you're older now, maybe back to that 26-year-old Charlotte, because of all the stuff you shared today.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. But yeah, I think so. I think there was a point where the light went out. You know, the light that people have behind their eyes. Sometimes you just feel something.
I can see it in people. Yeah, 100%. I've had it myself during the plumbing days. I get it.
Yeah. And at some point, I think that light come back on, and therefore it's then a responsibility to share it. But it's also then almost like you can't help it. Yeah. I have days like today's one of those days. I've got like so many things that I love to do all lined up. I'll get back to Abu Dhabi tonight, probably quite late, so sleep is compromised. But I'll be bouncing off the walls because it's good. Like, there's just so much come out of it, and it will spur something else on. It's all fun and games, isn't it? I think it's just a case of just staying true to that mission and keep doing what we're doing. And just to add, that doesn't mean I don't get stressed, right? It just means that we know how to come back.
Yeah. Amazing. Charlotte, thank you so much. Where can people find you and find out about any of the work you're doing?
The Wellness Theory, and on LinkedIn, Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, most active on YouTube. And if anybody wants to go and find out where their stress is actually coming from, whether it be life, health or root, they can go and do a free assessment as well, which they'll find on the website.
Great. Charlotte, amazing. Please check her out. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.